Blaine, your host with White Labs, an e-commerce marketing agency. Today's guest is Orion. Orion, feel free to introduce yourself and let our viewers know a little bit about yourself and your background.
So my name is Orion Horton Henderson. I'm the president of Horton Brasses, and we are a fourth generation family operation making cabinet and furniture hardware, and have done e-commerce since about 19. We were pretty early adopters onto the e-commerce world. We specialize in high-end designer hardware, custom hardware, sort of semi-custom. It really revolutionized our business model over the past 10 to 15 years to, I think, pretty unique things. We've kind of developed a very unique proprietary system of consultative selling over an e-commerce platform. So we don't really, we certainly do just straight up traditional e-commerce, but we also do quite a bit more.
Awesome. Well, tell me about your family's journey with the brand. How did it start? What inspired, I'm sure you know the story. How did this all happen?
Yeah, so my great-grandfather was a die sinker in Meriden, Connecticut in the and he did die sinking for the silver trade. So silver spoons. I have some of those old molds. He did the silver spoons for Disney at that point in time. He was a die sinker, so he would tap out punches and dies to make silver pieces. 1910 came, him and my great-grandmother sold antiques, pretty well-known antique dealer in the area at that time. And they had bought a house in Berlin, Connecticut in August of 19, and the stock market crashed. And in times of economic challenge, the antiques business historically has fared very well, and that is what happened. So my great-grandmother sold antique furniture. She would go to Frank, and she would have an old pull that she needed a match to. And she would give it to Frank. He would tap out by hand a punch and a die, and then he would make the part, and then she would sell the antique. And he did this. They did this for, 6-7 years. I mean, he did this his whole life from there on. And sometime around 19, people were just going to Angie and Frank for hardware. And Horton Brasses became an operation. She kind of tapered out of the antique business, and we just became a hardware company. And we've just been doing that ever since. 19 came, my great-grandfather out, and we moved to our prior factory in a different location in Connecticut. And we stayed there until last summer, when we've now moved the operations that we maintained to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So, in that time, my mother bought my grandfather out, I bought my mother out, and we continue on. So now I'm the fourth generation. We're in Pennsylvania now, and we do things a little differently. In the 90s, we really started to get into kitchen cabinet hardware, and that just continued to expand to the point that is most of what I do now. I don't really do the antique furniture, but I still have the history of it. We still have some of those parts, and we really pivoted to designer kitchen hardware. So very, very high-end kitchens, a very personalized service, a little bit of a different model, I think, than typical e-commerce.
Awesome. Amazing story. Who is your target audience?
My target audience is high-end kitchen designers and, of course, retail customers. My typical customer is spending $2 to $5 on their kitchen. And so we're the hardware portion of that purchase, which is, in terms of that transactions, we're actually a fairly small piece. In terms of the hardware market, we're a pretty top end brand. So the designers are who we're after the most target, because they do kitchens repeatedly, but we do a tremendous amount of retail. Retail's good, but typically most folks do 1 or 2 kitchens their whole life. So, we really reach out to the design world, because that's, regular repeat business. And we have a stable of customers in all the locations that you would expect high-end designers to exist. Palm Beach, Manhattan, Malibu, and all over the country. One of our unique things is most of the brands we sell are more design showroom. So they're in store. People are going into a design showroom, sort of like a jewelry store. And the United States is a very large country, and there's a lot of folks who don't live anywhere near places like that. So we also pick up a lot of people. We have great customers in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and rural Minnesota. So that's a big plus as well. The nature of e-commerce means we're not as geographically limited as many of our competitors. So we pick up a lot of the folks who would otherwise be orphans in this particular market. Most of what we sell is imported from England. Most of what we sell our business model is largely for the high-end kitchen is made to order. So that's a great business model. Customers go through the selection process, order samples, get samples, return samples, go back and forth, place their order. Roughly a month later, their order ships. So it creates a pretty excellent business model as far as the finance of it. So it's a good setup.
Awesome. What makes you different, or shall I say better than your competitors?
Well, I don't want to give away too many secrets here, but yes, we're e-commerce, but we're e-commerce with a white glove touch. So we are very available, however the customer wishes to reach out to us. We encourage you to just, by all means, go to the website, click and buy. Absolutely. That happens all day, every day. But a lot of, anytime you're buying a luxury good, which is what we do, luxury goods, most people want a more personalized service. So when you call our number, when you use our text number, when you email us, you get a real person who picks up or who answers that text message or who answers the email. And when we have our live chat on, currently we're kind of having some issues there. It's real people answering real questions who know the products, who know how to help you through that process, who know how to help the client through that process. And that's really why it works. You're there.
Makes sense. Your live chat is working. I was looking at it earlier. I think it is working.
Okay. There's two of us who do the sales and service side. And if one of us is out, it becomes really impossible to hold the live chat because it's not an automated chat. When you click that chat, we're on the other end of that call. This isn't AI. This isn't just automatic. We answer those questions. We answer in detail. It is a technical product. There's technical details that have to be dealt with. And the clients typically are not aware of those technical details. So we need to work through that process of selection. Everything works right. When you get this, you've invested a considerable sum in your cabinet hardware. It needs to work. It needs to fit exactly like it's supposed to. And so we do that. So so if there's someone out, we don't do the live chat, but we do answer the text messages.
You can't just use a virtual assistant overseas.
Yeah, we can't do that. We've never tried, but I mean, I've certainly been on the consumer side, and that's fine for some stuff, but it certainly ain't gonna work for us.
Definitely, I'm messing with you. What are your best selling products?
Our best selling products, we have our own house brand products, which is largely, our best sellers are cabinet hinges for our custom kitchens. It's an English brand called Armac Martin is our best seller, and that's a big chunk of what I do. And so they're high-end design kitchen made in Birmingham, England. And we've dealt with this company for 30 years. They started out like we did, making traditional furniture hardware for antiques and custom furniture makers. And they have evolved like us into where the business is, which is kitchens. And we just rolled along with it, and it worked out very well for us. And so we really are kind of experts in that brand. We have other English brands as well, but they are the biggest thing.
Great. Most of our listeners have e-commerce stores like yourself. What are some challenges that you've faced in the past few years, and how were you able to overcome them?
Well, I mean, the biggest, every e-commerce company, you have to pay your tithe to Google. That's, of course, the single biggest thing is you have to get found. A few years ago, we really ramped up our ad spend. Would we like to spend less on the ads? Of course we would. But when we scale it back, it doesn't work as well. We need to get found. Supply chain issues were an issue. 2020, 2021, those are largely over. Those have been over for us for a few years now. But yeah, it's getting your product seen through search, through branded search, in our case largely. And then again, we don't really compete with anyone else who does e-commerce. We compete with people who do in-store commerce. Mm-hmm. So our challenge is making sure that we're representing the brands that we sell effectively and honorably. We can't be, and we are not, drive-by. If you go into a design showroom and you contact us, what we don't rely on is price. We're going to be comparably priced to our competitors. So what we have to rely on is service. And how do we do service from afar? And so that's where challenging developing that system, figuring out how to do that to make sure that all of our relationships with all of our vendors to protect those brands stay strong.
What you mentioned Google. What other activities have you done that have helped promote the brand?
We've done a few videos. We've been pretty quiet on Instagram for the past few months, but social media has been a part of it. But that's really it. There's not much we can do.
Sure.
We're very active in the woodworking community, so that's another part. So that's a matter of knowing people, knowing the bloggers and the writers and the vloggers, and having relationships with those people that have developed over years and years and years. So it does rely on a personal touch. It's not an automated system. But Google's the biggest draw, and our more in our last few years where we become more of a retailer than anything
for sure.
else.
Google will always stay king for now.
For the moment, Google is king. Yeah. So but we are active everywhere that you need to be active. All the social channels, of course.
Awesome. So you've had an e-commerce store. So you said since '96.
Yeah. This is my parents had incredible foresight, and built our first website in 1990, which at the time e-commerce wasn't really
a thing.
Exist.
Wasn't a thing.
Right. It had what at the time was fairly advanced, but it was rudimentary e-commerce. It was like you had to essentially copy and paste your SKUs into an order form and then submit it. and that whole thing. And so we're on kind of Gen 3.5 of our website. We're actually in the middle of upgrading to an ERP system and doing a Gen 4, which should be out in the fall, which will just kind of complete the integration. We have found investments in technology, if intelligently thought out and carefully considered, have always paid off. So as we've invested in technology, it's always worked. And that goes back in my family for decades. We started as a cataloger, right? We started with our little Central Connecticut location, selecting antique dealers up and down the East Coast. Our first printed catalog was 19.
Wow.
When my grandmother got a fax machine in something like 1980. People didn't have fax machines in 19. Our first website's 96. Our first database was 1990. And this is, we're a tiny company.
Yeah.
We have 8 employees, and here we are, 1991, with a database. A network database in the building. Before anyone had internet. So we've always found investments in technology, not to be foolish. I'm not saying, there's a lot of technology that is marketed and sold that is fairly useless, but sensible investments in technology have always paid off. We went to a unified e-commerce platform in 2000, which cost us at the time, which is an astronomical sum, but it paid off. It worked. It was not quite an ERP system. It tracked inventory and it kind of tied everything together so we weren't using multiple systems, and it worked. Now we're kind of moving beyond that to a full-fledged ERP. But yeah, we've always found that, you have to spend more than you want to get the technology right. And it has always paid off in the past. Obviously, no guarantee of future success, but that appears to be pretty precious. If you want to stay operational, we're on our 88th year in business, you need to change with the times. You need to jump to it. You can't just say, well, this has always worked before and it's not working. It must be the times. Technology is not cyclical.
Well, what is your future plan for yourself and the brand?
We are actively seeking new brands to represent, to add to our stable. We have our own brand, the Horton Brasses brand. We sell the Armac Martin brand out of England. We sell Croft hardware, also out of England. And we sell a brand called Ged Kennett, also out of England. There seems to be a theme here. England is the theme.
Yeah, I see that.
We also own a sub-brand called Londonderry Brasses, which the hardware comes out of England. Again, going with a theme. And we acquired a company called Londonderry Brasses back in it was a very small operation, one-person place. The owner passed away. And so we bought her inventory and basically a customer list and integrated that. But what we are actively looking to do is to expand the number of brands that we represent. We have one that's on board for the upcoming launch of the new site, which will be in the fall. I have another one that we're talking to. We have other feelers out there. So that's really our goal, is to take this model of consultative selling in an e-commerce setting for high-end products and do more of it. It works. Let's do more of it. We found a thing that works, so let's just keep doing it. And when it stops working, we'll do something different.
Definitely. Sounds great, man. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and learning more about yourself and the brand. It's been great. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks. You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.